Well, there has been another mass murder, as you know, at a school in Texas where the uniquely American phenomenon of mass murder at schools, complete with television coverage, like the television coverage you're seeing tonight, began. All of that began in Texas in 1966 when Charles Whitman, a name that became one of the most famous names of the 1960s, went to the top of the Texas Tower, the University of Texas in Austin, and with his rifle aimed down at people walking across the campus and shot and killed 16 of them before he was shot and killed by police. Before going to the tower, like many of the mass murderers who followed in his footsteps, Charles Whitman shot and killed his wife, shot and killed his mother. The mass murderer in Sandy Hook in Connecticut, 46 years later, shot and killed his mother before going to the elementary school there to murder 20 kindergarten and first grade students and 6 adults working at the school. The latest reports indicate that as many as 18 children and 3 adults were shot and killed today at the Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas, a town of 15,000 people, about 60 miles from the Mexican border. Some reports indicate that the children were mostly in grades 2, 3, and 4. The mass murderer of children at the Sandy Hook Elementary School in Connecticut in 2012 changed Connecticut Senator Chris Murphy's focus in the Senate, where he has become the Senate's leading expert on a uniquely American way of death, being shot to death at school. Senator Murphy rose on the Senate floor today without a prepared speech and said this.
Mr. President, there are 14 kids dead in an elementary school in Texas right now. What are we doing? What are we doing? Just days after a shooter walked into a grocery store to gun down African-American patrons, we have another Sandy Hook on our hands. What are we doing? There have been more mass shootings than days in the year. Our kids are living in fear every single time they set foot in a classroom because they think they're going to be next. What are we doing? Why do you spend all this time running for the United States Senate? Why do you go through all the hassle of getting this job, of putting yourself in a position of authority, if your answer is that as this slaughter increases, as our kids run for their lives, we do nothing? What are we doing? Why are you here? If not to solve a problem as existential as this. This isn't inevitable. These kids weren't unlucky. This only happens in this country and nowhere else. Nowhere else do little kids go to school thinking that they might be shot that day. Nowhere else do parents have to talk to their kids, as I have had to do, about why they got locked into a bathroom and told to be quiet for 5 minutes just in case a bad man entered that building. Nowhere else does that happen except here in the United States of America, and it is a choice. It is our choice to let it continue.
The former governor of Texas, George W. Bush, while serving as president, refused to support an extension of the assault weapons ban of the 1990s that did help reduce mass murders. Since then, Republicans in the House and Senate have consistently refused to consider any legislation involving guns and ammunition. Both of the Republican senators from Texas today issued thoughts and prayers statements, which can easily be translated into promises to make sure that American mass murderers remain the best equipped mass murderers in the world. Senator Cornyn and Senator Cruz are, in effect, promising the people who elected them in Texas tonight that the next time a mass murderer enters a Texas school, that mass murderer will be as well equipped as every other mass murderer who has entered Texas public schools since 1966. Senator Cruz told reporters today that his solution is, quote, going after felons and fugitives and those with serious mental illness, arresting them, prosecuting them when they try to illegally buy firearms. Now, virtually none of the mass murderers in American schools were felons. None of them were fugitives. And those who've had mental illness cannot be arrested for mental illness, as Senator Cruz was suggesting. And almost all of them obtained their firearms legally, many of them as gifts from their parents, or they used their parents' guns. 54 years ago, on the day after Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated, Senator Robert Kennedy, whose brother, President John Kennedy, had been assassinated 5 years earlier, said, "No one, no matter where he lives or what he does, can be certain who will suffer from some senseless act of bloodshed, yet it goes on and on." Why? Why is the question President Biden asked tonight after he returned to the White House from Asia and addressed the nation from the Roosevelt Room.
I'd hoped when I became president I would not have to do this again. Another massacre, Uvalde, Texas, an elementary school. Beautiful, innocent, second, third, fourth graders. And how many scores of little children who witnessed what happened see their friends die as if they're on a battlefield, for God's sake. They'll live with it the rest of their lives. There's a lot we don't know yet. There's a lot we do know. The parents who will never see their child again, never have them jump in bed and cuddle with them. Parents who will never be the same. As a nation, we have to ask, when in God's name are we going to stand up to the gun lobby? When in God's name we do what we all know in our gut needs to be done? I am sick and tired of it. We have to act. And don't tell me we can't have an impact on this carnage. I spent my career as a senator and a vice president working to pass common sense gun laws. We can and won't prevent every tragedy, but we know they work and have positive impact. When we passed the assault weapons ban, mass shootings went down. When the law expired, mass shootings tripled. The idea that an 18-year-old kid can walk into a gun store and buy 2 assault weapons is just wrong. What in God's name do you need an assault weapon for except to kill someone? Deer aren't running through the forest with Kevlar vests on, for God's sake. It's just sick. I just got off a trip from Asia, meeting with Asian leaders. And I learned of this while I was on the aircraft. And what struck me on that 17-hour flight, what struck me was these kinds of mass shootings rarely happen anywhere else in the world. Why? They have mental health problems. They have domestic disputes in other countries. They have people who are lost. But these kinds of mass shootings never happen with the kind of frequency they happen in America. Why? Why are we willing to live with this carnage? Why do we keep letting this happen? It's time to turn this pain into action. For every parent, for every citizen in this country, we have to make it clear to every elected official in this country, it's time to act. It's time for those who obstruct or delay or block the common sense gun laws. We need to let you know that we will not forget. We can do so much more. We have to do more.